Welcome to the Resource Podcast, where we take a slightly sassy, fully feminist approach to creating healthy relationships and a joyful life. I'm your host, Tatiana Thompson, and I'm a licensed professional counselor practicing in both Arizona and Minnesota. I specialize in applying clinically proven techniques like EMDR, parts work, and neural reprogramming to help you see real, lasting change in your everyday life. Just remember, I am a licensed therapist, but I'm not your therapist. This show is for informational purposes only, and it's not a replacement for seeking personal mental health or medical advice. So join me now as we explore simple strategies for breaking toxic relationship patterns and applying simple mental health tools to your daily life. Learn how to take the small steps today that will guide you to your best life tomorrow. Hello and welcome to the Resource Podcast, the show that invites you to question everything you thought you knew about relationships and mental health so you can finally break through your stuck points and create the life you've always wanted. I'm your host, Tatiana, and I'm on a mission to help 1,000 women become emotionally and financially independent so they can choose a relationship instead of needing one. And today, I want to talk about a psychological skill that I personally have found to be the most life-changing thing I've ever encountered. It's when I finally learned it. In fact, it's something I make a point to do every single day for myself as part of my mindfulness routine. That's how important it is, and I want to invite you to have the same type of practice. So, can I get a drum roll, please? I am talking today about the insanely powerful tool of simply feeling your emotions. I know, that was kind of a letdown. It doesn't sound all that sexy, does it? But it's probably the most important and overlooked skill most of us never really learned growing up. And let me just back up here. I know you think you did. And okay, there might be a few of you out there who did, but most of us probably didn't. Probably most powerful things we can do for our overall happiness is to learn how to feel our emotions. So let me dig into why this is true. Again, let me warn you, you think you're perfectly good at this. You feel pain, you feel sadness, you feel unhappy. You think you're feeling your emotions, but that's not usually the case. It's a bit of a sneaky trick our minds play on us. Most of us have a lot of sneaky ways of avoiding them without even realizing it. So let's kind of dive into first how we avoid our emotions, because that's the thing. We think we're feeling them, but we're probably not. One of the things we do to avoid our emotions is any form of numbing behavior. So that can look like scrolling on social media. That could look like eating junk food or just eating when you're not hungry, drinking alcohol, any sort of drug use. I know a regular use of weed daily. We need to look at that, okay? An occasional, fine, whatever, just for fun. We're talking that habitual use or because you're stressed that you need to use it. Another form of numbing could be gambling, porn, compulsive sexual behavior. Anything that feels compulsive ultimately is what we're looking at, or kind of like this craving that I have to conclude. Now, those are the more overt ways that we avoid our emotions. We all kind of know that the numbing behaviors are a way to do that, right? But here are the really sneaky ones. The first one that has always been my go-to, that I still struggle with today, I still have to catch it, is that compulsive busyness. I've got to get to the next project. I've got to plan out my day. I got to do something else. I got to find the next problem to solve. I got to keep busy, or else the whole world's going to collapse around me, right? Guess what? That is a trauma response in so many ways. One of them is just a need for control, right? But it's also a way of avoiding your emotions. It's like, oh, I'm too busy for that. I have too much to do. I'm just going to, instead of feeling the emotion of helplessness and fear, I'm going to go ahead and just like try to take control and override all of those emotions. So that one's really, really common. Start noticing that in yourself if that comes up. The other way that I think is the sneakiest one is what I like to call storytelling or ruminating or looping on a thought or a memory. Now, here's where you think you're feeling your emotion. This looks like, you're really sad all day long, or you even like lay down in bed for hours or days and you cry and you think you're feeling your emotions. But here's the thing. You're not really feeling the emotion so much as you're fixated on a thought or story that's about the future probably. It's not the present. It's either the past or the future. And if it's the past, it's projecting it onto the future. So it's something like, oh, I got fired from this last job, so I'm never going to have financial security in the future. See, that's a past situation that I'm now projecting into the future. And it's not a fact. We cannot tell the future. Yes, we can assume some basic things about the future based on the past, but we can't tell for sure. So this projection we put into the future is not a fact, which actually is kind of the point, because it's something that can never find resolution. You can never close that loop. So you get stuck in it. And the loop allows you to avoid the actual emotion of, let's say it's fear or helplessness or sadness. That's what you need to sit with. There's even the subtle nuance of, I feel really scared that I'm never going to have financial security because I lost my job and I'm afraid that's going to happen again. That you can lean into. The difference is when you go, I'm never going to be secure and I'm so scared and I'm so sad and look at what my future holds and blah, 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 blah. Because again, you're looking at something that is not true. The thing that is true is I feel fear and sadness right now because I lost my job and I don't know what that means about my future. I know that sounds like there's very little distinction there, but it's powerful. So the other thing to think about is a lot of people who may find themselves in this loop of like storytelling and ruminating on the same thought, they might even think of themselves as very emotionally intelligent, but it's more likely that they're more like emotionally up and down. We call that labile in the biz, or they might even consider themselves a bit dramatic, or other people call them that. But again, they're not actually metabolizing their emotions in a controlled way. They're avoiding the real emotion and being driven into erratic behaviors as a result of that. Now, I'm not saying laying in your bed and crying is an erratic behavior, but if you find yourself going through something and you keep finding yourself acting out or getting really dramatic in public and not doing things that you wouldn't want to do, then that's not feeling the emotion. Your emotions are now guiding you into this erratic behavior. And it's actually just as emotionally avoidant as someone who seems to be emotionally unavailable and is turned off to their emotions. This is just a way of looking like we're feeling our emotions. Again, I want to be clear. I'm not saying anybody's trying to be performative in this way. It is just a sneaky way that our bodies and our minds help us avoid it. So let's get into the why we want to avoid our emotions so badly. And many of us actually have parts that have been designed to stop us from feeling our emotions. This is really powerful to understand. We have so much training as we're growing up to avoid our emotions, and there's so many reasons for that. We don't have any good models in most cases. Very few of us have parents who were taught to feel their emotions. So we have no model. We have bad models because we saw people lose control of themselves. So we assume emotions equal loss of control, which scares us, and we don't want to do that. So a lot of this is internal, it's called an introjection. We take the voice or the worry of other people and we make it a voice inside of ourselves to get us to stop doing the problematic thing before we get judged by the outside world. So we have no training, right? On top of that, we have this deep fear of abandonment, like we've talked about before. As children, our only job is to keep the adults in our lives loving us and close by, because if we don't, we will die. So when we were little, most of us have had an experience where we had a big show of emotion and we were in some way abandoned. We might have been punished. We might have been sent to our rooms. We might have seen other people being shamed for similar emotions. So again, we created that introjection of, I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to get abandoned again. Why would I do that? Don't have big emotions, especially not in front of other people. But really, you can't control yourself, so just don't do it. That takes us into the next reason that we're afraid of feeling them, is that we're afraid we'll lose control of our behaviors. But here's a delineation I want to put out there. Emotions and behaviors are not the same thing. We tend to conflate them because emotions precede behaviors. And if we don't feel the emotions adequately, they will lead to unhealthy behaviors. So understand this. Emotions happen first. That leads us to a behavior only if we do not feel the emotion adequately first. So our job, this is why it's so important to feel them, is to feel the emotions so that we don't behave in a way that we didn't want to behave. All right. Finally, another reason that we're really afraid of feeling emotions is that I've heard this so many times. We're afraid we'll get lost to the emotion. We're afraid we will drown in it. It feels like a tsunami, especially if we've never been in the habit of feeling them. We're like, oh my God, it feels like it's just smashing me down. So I want to refute that. And I know it's going to take time for you to trust to feel it anyway. But there's this Harvard neuroscientist named Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor, and she dubbed the 90-second emotional processing rule. And it's funny, I know that a lot of therapists, including myself, kind of discovered this independent of her. I'm not trying to not give her credit, but like I've noticed when I sit with a client to feel their emotions, it's over really quickly. So in her research, she was able to see that emotions really are a neurochemical response in the body, and they only take about 90 seconds to metabolize to kind of ride that wave. But most of us are so accustomed to running away from the emotion that we confuse being haunted or weighed down by them with actually feeling them. We're not feeling them. We're running from them, which is an uncomfortable thing. Yeah, that's my dog. He wants to go out, but we're not going to do that right now. Okay. In both cases, we're uncomfortable, either feeling the emotion or running from it, right? But only when we feel them can we finish that cycle and release it from our bodies, okay? The other thing she notes that if we keep coming back to the emotion, like for example, we have felt the emotion genuinely, we went for it, but it keeps coming back, it's actually just us looping on a thought or a belief that's reactivating the neurochemical response. So what we may need to look at there is disengaging from the thought so that we can break the cycle itself. So let's keep moving on. Most of us don't even realize how afraid we are of feeling our emotions. I witness that block daily with my clients because I give them tools to start leaning into their vulnerable emotions. And I'll tell you, most clients come back the next week with some reason they couldn't even try the exercise. I always warn them, there's always going to be some form of like, oh, this is silly. It's too simple. It doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. And that's just another way we're avoiding our emotions, because if I'm giving you a 5-minute exercise to do every day that I promised you was going to help you and you're not doing it, that's clear avoidance behavior, because what is the risk of doing it? What's the risk other than all of those fears we just discussed? So like I said earlier, from some clients, we actually have to work with the parts that are preventing them from sitting with the emotions. If they come back for a few weeks in a row and they still haven't tried it, I know there's a part that is just genuinely trying to protect this client from feeling emotions. That's how scared they are of the repercussions. If you're enjoying this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening. It helps the show grow so that we can create even more content to help you and others build an extraordinary life. You might be thinking now, great, Tatiana, we avoid feeling our emotions. So what? Why does that even matter? Why are you obsessed with this? Okay, so it matters for so many reasons. If you listened to my first episode, you'll have a head start because it is a foundational pillar of my work with clients and my philosophy in psychological well-being. But let's start with the most important reason just right off the top, okay? This is what I think is going to make you pay attention. Your emotions will find a way out, whether you want them to or not. And I don't know about you, but I'd like to be in control of that release instead of at its mercy. So I like to think of your body as like a big cooking pot, like something you put on the stovetop, right? As you experience emotionally charged events, the pot starts to fill with emotions. Almost think of them as like a liquid. And once the pot is full, the emotions will start overflowing. So our work is to learn how and when to take the lid off of the pot and let the emotions boil out, like almost like a simmer. Let the liquid out. So we can keep the levels low enough that they never get a chance to overflow. Because when our emotions overflow, it's almost always an unpleasant or embarrassing thing. Again, we want to let it simmer off in a controlled simmer, not boil over because there's too much in there. Like I said earlier, emotions and behaviors are different, but unfelt emotions will always turn into behaviors, and they're usually not the kinds we're proud of. Another thing to consider is they can either be turned inward to harm us, our emotions, through like internal self-criticism, self-hate, numbing behaviors, and even physical ailments like autoimmune disorders. I've seen that so many times in my practice, and there's a lot of meta-analyses of individuals with autoimmune disorders or different chronic health issues, that typically there is a lot of backlogged anger and self-hatred from abuse. So emotions can be turned inward and they harm us, or they can be turned outward through outbursts of anger or just behaving in ways that you really wouldn't want to. I'm like thinking things like drunk dialing your ex or, just things that would really embarrass you, lashing out at somebody. So either way, whether they're turned inward or they're turned outward, they're not good for us. They're usually either embarrassing or painful for us, and we want to be in control of that. Okay, so I'm going to use another analogy here to help you understand how processing emotions is so valuable. I like to use the analogy of potty training when it comes to processing our emotions. For some reason, society only pressures us to toilet train our children. We'd all be a lot healthier if we were taught how to emotionally potty train as well. Because think about it this way. If you don't learn how and when to release your emotions and to hold them in the right place and let them out at the right time and in the right way, you are likely to have an accident that's embarrassing and messy to clean up. You have that outburst at work, you're embarrassed, and you got to clean it up, and it's not fun. And just like this analogy, emotions need to be digested or metabolized. It's like we get all the goodness out of it and we move it through us. We need to feel them move through our body, get the nutrients they offer. They do offer nutrients, by the way. They tell us something. My anger is telling me I need to set a boundary. My guilt is telling me I need to change a behavior. And then we need to release them so they don't get backed up. So thanks for bearing with me with another toileting analogy, and back to our regularly scheduled program. Okay, so that is the main reason that we need to feel our emotions. They will find a way out. I promise you. And let me even think about it this way. They either find inward harm. Another inward harm is the eating too much at night, drinking too much alcohol, that revenge bedtime, right? Like I'm sitting here scrolling, drinking wine, eating ice cream, not getting enough sleep, and my whole next day is ruined, and so on and so forth. They will find a way to be dealt with, whether they're out or in. Okay. The second reason they're so important to feel is, like I just mentioned before, they tell us something. They give us valuable information. Anger usually means a boundary is being pressed against and I need to stand up for myself. Sadness could mean something like I need to let go of something or process out some grief. Feeling hurt might mean I need to ask for something different from someone. Does that make sense? I hope that's really helpful. Feeling helpless might mean I need to sit in that helplessness, relinquish some control, and then explore what I can control. So ultimately, they're giving us some information about what we need to do in the long run. But I want you to understand this. You don't do the action until you've fully metabolized the emotion, because that clears out your ability to get the right answer. Okay. So the next reason that it's so important to feel our emotions is it allows that tension, that frustration to leave our body. Like I said earlier, most of us are being haunted by a backlog of emotions. Like we're literally trying to run from ghosts. Like think of yourself as running the opposite direction and they're chasing you. But if we could just stop running and turn towards those ghosts, we'd learn that they aren't going to kill us. It's the running that was hurting us. It was still painful to have these ghosts chasing us. And so we think we're feeling the emotion, but we're not. It's just uncomfortable. It's not an emotion. Okay, so the next reason is once you metabolize the emotion, you will feel so much lighter. Genuinely, like it's weird. I'm not saying you're going to feel perfect, but you're going to feel a cleansing come over you. So think about it this way. I know you've had this experience. When you go to the movie and you have a really good cry, it feels like kind of good afterward, doesn't it? It's that cathartic cry. And in that case, you're actually using the movie characters as proxies for your own feelings. Maybe you don't know how to sit with your own emotions or your own grief in your life, so you're actually feeling it through their story. But once you clear out the backlog of emotions, your mind becomes so much clearer and your brain becomes open to new solutions. So that's something that's super cool about feeling your emotions. Our job in feeling our emotions is to metabolize that, and then suddenly the part that took over us can step back and our highest self is available for new information, it's not even looking for a solution. solutions start to present. You start to have an open mind. It's like you take off your blinders, you open your blinders, and you can see more solutions present themselves because you're not clouded with the emotion. You're not being haunted and running. You're being still and you're clear. Okay, final reason that I want you to feel all of your emotions is this. When you numb to some emotions, you numb to all emotions. That doesn't mean you don't feel any of them, but it means you don't feel the whole breadth and depth of all of them. You can't feel the full spectrum of joy and peace when you don't allow yourself to feel the opposite emotions. Okay? I want you to feel all of it, all the goodness and all the pain. I know it's so cheesy, but you can't taste the sweet without the bitter. You need all of it. All right, so this is all about why it's so important for us to feel our emotions, and that's what this whole episode is about. I want you to join me next week when I'll be discussing how to start feeling your emotions so that you can control them instead of having them control you. And something I always like to say to my clients is this. Remember this, okay? Feeling your emotions will never harm you, but the things you do to avoid them will. So thank you again for listening today, and I want you to remember, you deserve a great life, and the fastest way to get there is to create small daily habits that are consistent with that lifestyle you want. I want to invite you to keep practicing these simple skills so you can stop chasing and start choosing. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Resourced Podcast. My hope is that you learned at least one practical tool you can apply to your life today to move in the direction of your dreams. If you found this content helpful, be sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and consider subscribing to my email list, which is linked in the show notes. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. What step will you take today?